Welcome to WYCD Wicked Back and to the Left. That stands for What You Can Do, Back and to the Left. My name's Jake, and today, a cover up of a sex scandal. The government ordered by Congress to release the full Epstein files to you so that you could decide for yourself who has escaped justice. And yet, once again, they have refused. Instead, the drip feed continues, and we will be looking at some of the information they say we are allowed to have. I'm your old pal, Jake, and we will also be asking questions such as, what can we infer? Have they accidentally released too much, and what is the point of delaying the release like this? Will we lose interest? I think there's another explanation. But of course, this is the realm of conspiracy, which means I don't have proof, only questions. And a general badass attitude. First up, the most crucial thing, figuring out how to get these name tags off the screen. There we go. How's everybody doing tonight? Natchikit, great to see you. Let's discuss what is in the Epstein files. Brought to us by PBS NewsHour. Here are the photos that were released today. We're going to go over them together. Not a lot of, well, I suppose it depends on who you are. If you have the sort of lack of faith in humanity that I do, there we are. This will not surprise you terribly. Of course, they were happy to release photos of entertainers and Democratic politicians with Jeffrey Epstein. But I happen to know something about those circles and the time in which those pictures were taken. And there's a conspicuous absence. But let's dive into it. This is from Liz Sanders, PBS NewsHour. Excuse me. Yes, Liz Sanders. Liz Landers, excuse me, by Liz Landers. See photos and documents from the latest Epstein files release. We just got to the title, and I need to say a clarification, point of clarification. We were supposed to have them all right now. I waited until midnight to do this stream because as of midnight, the Department of Justice is officially in violation of the law. The heads of the Department of Justice, if we ever intend to call this a just country again, must be arrested. They had 30 days to prepare. They had the full strength of the U.S. DOJ to do so. This is the top issue in the nation. And they failed. They said they need more time. They're going to begin releasing files today, and then over the course of a few weeks, they say they'll release the rest. I've got a hell of a plot twist coming up, folks. But let's look at what they did release. The Justice Department released tens of thousands of records Friday on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Though many of the files are heavily redacted, and the agency failed to meet a legal deadline to release all files related to its investigations. Here's a picture of Bill Clinton with what appears to be a girl on his lap whose face is blacked out. The material comes after a year-long bipartisan push for the government to release its files on the Epstein investigation. Trump and House Speaker Mike Johnson Both initially sought to block or delay the effort. Let's be absolutely clear. The president and the Speaker of the House, so the leader of the whole country, as well as the Republican Party, and the leader of the Republican Party in the House of Representatives, are both in on the cover up. Just state that out loud for yourself. They're both trying to cover this up. The president and the Speaker of the House, two top leading Republicans. Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky who authored the Epstein Files Transparency Act, a Republican who authored the Epstein Files Transparency Act, used a procedural move called a discharge petition to force a vote on the bill on the House floor. That is dissent within the Republican Party over this. Good. There ought to be. Throughout my whole life, both parties have been led by people I consider to be criminals. The law should consider to be criminals because they break the law flagrantly, blatantly, mocking us to our face about it. The law which Trump signed in mid-November, knowing damn well he wouldn't have to follow it, requires the Department of Justice to release publicly all unclassified records, documents, communications, and investigative materials in the possession of the DOJ, FBI, and U.S. attorneys' offices within 30 days, or December 19th. The files, many heavily redacted, include photographs, contact lists, flight logs, business records and memos, court documents, and more. Pause. All unclassified records, documents, communication, and investigative materials. Ask yourself, who has the power to classify a document right now? Who might need a lot of time to comb through all of the documents and find every mention of themselves and classify it? Who might need weeks to do that? What we will be looking for in these files and in the ones that get released over the next few weeks will be the shape of a man in shadow. We'll be searching for conspicuous absences, references to somebody over and over that all get redacted, references to events that we do not see documented in the release. We will know then who is being protected, or at least we will be able to zero in on who is being protected via illegal classification of documents that are supposed to belong to us, we the people. Here's a disgusting room. This is a area where people like Alan Dershowitz, lawyer for Epstein, friend of Donald Trump, would get massages. He says he kept his underwear on in this room with naked women all over. They would get massages from children, you see. That's, I hope to God, what those oils are. Although it's worth noting that there is anecdotal evidence from the victims, somebody who Epstein raped, that he would receive a massage for about a half hour, then turn over and send their chaperone away, and then rape children in that room. Alan Dershowitz says he kept his underwear on. The Attorney General does have the ability to redact or withhold information that personally identifies victims or would jeopardize an active federal investigation. But those redactions must be accompanied by a written justification and submitted to Congress. Pause. Don't assume every blacked out face is a victim. Some of those blacked out faces are going to be people who helped perpetrate the crime. Some of those people are still technically under investigation. I'm talking pilots, prostitutes, people who saw kids coming in and out of these areas where the world's most powerful diddlers gathered. People who flew Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and a bunch of preteens who were not their relations, were not their family around. There's pilots out there who saw unaccompanied minors get onto a plane with a known sex pest and flew them around, transported them, chose to ask no questions. People like that are going to be in these files as well. Some of those people, I'm sure, impressed some of these powerful folks with their ability to stay silent. And I have a feeling you'll see them to this day in the employ held very close to these powerful folks. With the release of the Epstein files, what we have is only the beginning of questions. And the questions must not end until all of these folks are in prison. I've been very disappointed with the partial nature of the release, Khanna told PBS NewsHour's Liz Landers on Friday night, saying there was no information about why certain materials were redacted. He pointed specifically to a few documents missing from the release that may have offered more information about others involved in covering up Epstein's abuse, including the government's draft indictment and witness interview memorandum. It's less about is this a full release and more about the quality of the release and what they are hiding, he said. That's what the survivors want, he added. Former President Bill Clinton features prominently in several of the newly released images. In some cases, pictured with women whose identities have been redacted, either a victim or an accomplice. They can release as many grainy 20-plus-year-old photos as they want, but this isn't about Bill Clinton. Never has, never will be, Clinton's deputy chief of staff said in a statement Friday. Let me be clear. This is absolutely about Bill Clinton. Do not let this scum con you into thinking that they are on your team, that you have to let one of these punks go in order to catch the others. No, that time is gone. Clinton will burn in hell for the actions he's taken throughout his life. I don't believe in hell, but I believe one will be made just so he can be sent there. He will burn in hell for the way he's lived his life. But he's not the only one. He is the person they are hoping you will focus your attention on. So, if somebody comes to you and says, we don't have to go after Republicans, look, we've got Bill Clinton. What they're hoping you'll do is try to defend Clinton so they don't have to feel bad about trying to defend their people. But to be clear, Clinton is not our people. I mean, politically, he's part of the reason why progressives don't exist in America. Not as a political force, not as the leaders of America like they should be. Being, the only people with souls who are actually in politics. The only people who give a damn about whether or not your life is worth living. Progressives are. And because of the Clintons, they are not in power. Progressives hold almost no power. So politically, he's not on our side. But I don't care if it was Bernie Sanders. If you diddled kids, you do not have our protection. In fact, you are useful to us only as an example we can make out of you. So, when a Republican comes to you saying Bill Clinton is in the Epstein files, where's pictures of him being sick, deranged, swimming with Ghislaine Maxwell, you're going to see it in a moment. Let them see the glee in your eyes, in your voice, in your demeanor. Let them see how happy you are that motherfucker is going to get some justice. Share with them your happiness because it's infectious. Share with them your glee at the destruction of a powerful deceiver, because you will ask them as well to join you. Burn down both parties. They are rapists. Look through the files that have been released so far, and you will see. I mean, you don't have to. I'm doing it so you don't have to. But if you choose to, you will see a collection of every influential person from your lifetime hanging out with a child molester. And even if you assume utter ignorance of the situation going in, there was children dressed scantily hanging around this guy, standing in rooms with pictures of naked adults. Even if you assume that, say, Dershowitz didn't know what was happening, even if you assume that he's no different than the pilots, than the waiters, than everybody who saw that rapist with those children and chose to do nothing. At the very best, the people in these photos are accomplices by their silence. Some of your faves coming up. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said in a Fox News interview on Friday morning that not all Epstein files would be released Friday. Announced he was going to break the law. Instead, hundreds of thousands of documents would be released over the course of the coming weeks. There's actor Kevin Spacey on the in the center, seen in a room of men, including former President Bill Clinton. This undated photo was among thousands of records on convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, released by the Justice Department on Friday. I hope that's not Alan Alda. I don't think that's Alan Alda in the foreground, but if it is, I'll be inconsolable for about a day. Look at how blacked out these photos are. Look at how much they chose to redact on these photos. Why do you think all these photos are redacted? Are these victims? Are these accomplices? Are these people under investigation? A heavily redacted photo contact sheet with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein seen in the center image. This image was among thousands of records on the Epstein files released by the Justice Department on Friday. Jeffrey with a breast cake. Oh, and U.S. Army pants. Now, here's a question for you. Where'd he get those? Was he in the Army? No. Was he hanging out with generals? Hey, it's magician David Copperfield holding somebody who was an active child rapist at the time of the picture. There's David Copperfield, the Las Vegas magician, warmly embracing, even giddily embracing, doing a little joke photo with Ghislaine Maxwell, the child rapist. David Copperfield. There's a lot of eyes looking at these, and we want to make sure that when we do produce the materials we're producing, that we're protecting every single victim, he said, adding that a judge has also required the U.S. attorney in New York to reveal the materials to protect victims' safety. I want to point out that the victims have said, don't blur my face, black it out. Don't hide my identity, because I say I was there, and you called me a liar. You did nothing to pursue my rapists. Don't black out my face. And yet, they pretended not to hear. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, which issued its own subpoena to the Epstein estate earlier this year in the course of its own probe into how the investigation was handled, have selectively released a steady stream of Epstein emails, images, and documents in the last few weeks. They come from a total batch of 95,000 images from the Epstein estate, according to the Democratic ranking member on the committee, which come from Epstein's email account and computer. Some of the photos in a recent cache this week show high-profile figures like the Google co-founder Sergey Brin and Republican strategist Steve Bannon. Let me go back before you're about to see a crazy picture, but let me just go back because that's easily forgotten about. Steve Bannon, gang. Steve Bannon is amongst those who, oh God, was seen in close contact with Jeffrey Epstein after the convictions. Trump's number one strategist, Steve Bannon. The reason most people, at least in 2016, agreed that Trump was president at all, Steve Bannon, was intimate with the Epstein circle. There's Bubba. Sorry, that's a nickname for Bill Clinton. Famously, a nickname for Bill Clinton is Bubba. There he is, relaxing. I can't tell. He appears to have, if you look very closely, he appears to have a swimsuit on, but he is in a pool, shirtless, with somebody whose face is blacked out. They said they were blacking out the faces of victims. Is that him in a pool, relaxing with a child sex trafficking victim? Former President Bill Clinton seen in a pool next to a person whose face has been redacted. This undated photo was among the thousands of records, blah, blah, blah. Hey, the thumbnail. There's Bill Clinton and Ghislaine Maxwell swimming together. I'm sorry, I didn't specify. Ghislaine Maxwell from child raping fame. The child rapist, Ghislaine Maxwell. She's swimming with Clinton. There's somebody else in the pool. Their face is blacked out. Don't be afraid to throw this guy under the bus. Show the people who think we're going to fight them on this stuff how happy we are not to. But also, don't be a fool. We've said from the beginning, they will toss this out like bait. We already knew Clinton was scum. Now we have confirmation. Good. We also know Trump is scum. Let's see if we see, I don't know, things that Trump might enjoy plastered all over Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, look, we got Clinton, Michael Jackson, somebody with their face blacked out, and somebody with their chest blacked out. Hey, that person who appears to be wearing something that requires the covering up of their chest for these photos, they're next to somebody. They're leaning over, it appears, to hug somebody quite short whose face had to be blacked out. Do you think that person might possibly know what's going on, might possibly be involved? Diana Ross is that person. Those are the former president of the United States, the king of pop, and Diana freaking Ross hanging out with a quite short person whose face had to be blacked out. Let's just power on. Walter Cronkite. Oh, look. Gold leaf on everything. Gold leaf on the mirrors. Gold leaf on the mantle. Gold leaf on the fascia. Gold leaf on the railing. Gold leaf on the desk. And what appears to be statues of babies crawling. That's one of Jeffrey Epstein's properties, the sort of property that Trump would have been more likely to visit around this time because it's his New York townhome and his Virgin Island living spaces. Mick Jagger and somebody whose face is blacked out. Bill Clinton again. That's fun. Epstein getting a massage from a diddler, just two diddlers spending their time together. Khanna said there are a few options for how to push for more documents to be released, including additional testimony including additional testimony and news conferences with survivors, from survivors and news conferences with them as well, lawsuits, impeachment, and referrals for criminal prosecution if the government does not comply. My interest is not punitive against Attorney General Pam Bondi or the Deputy Attorney General or Trump. It's to find justice. Pause. My interest is punitive. Punitive meaning I think it deserves criminal punishment. Punitive equals punishment. I do think this must be met with punishment. Yet again, they tried to fuck us over. Yet again, they tried to cover up for sex offenders. It was so bad that we required an act of Congress to get these files released. And now they have defied Congress. That's you and me. You and I just said that our will, because we did not have faith in the Department of Justice, and apparently rightly so, our will was that these files be released. Meaning, if they have been acting in our name, now they must release the files. But they're not acting for us. They are acting against us. This is a cover-up. We are in the middle of it. And all you have to do to fight it is be loud. Share the stuff around. Talk about it in your community. This is the sort of thing to bring up at the water cooler. Oh my God, they're defying Congress. Oh my God, these people are still doing it. And I want to see what we can do to get more of these documents released, he said. Yeah, I also want to see that. One sec, the stream might get a little weird. And we are back. So let's just go ahead and remove that. So where do we stand? What happens next? What do we do with this information? Well, first, 95,000 files were released. It's going to take at least a weekend to go through them. And you're going to see horrible things about people you recognize that will come out throughout the weekend. But crucially, you will also see a mysterious lack of mentions. You will see that even though there are multiple people who are currently in power, such as Donald Trump, but also, in a sense, Alan Dershowitz, somebody who's still invited to talk on cable news for some freaking reason, you'll find that these folks aren't mentioned. We have to start looking for where we would expect reasonable mentions of such people. We also have to keep an eye out for documents which are referenced but not shown, because that's part of the cover-up. To give you my bona fides, I correctly guessed how every cover-up since I started the show will go. Because like many of you, this is not unique to me, but like many of you, I'm familiar with how U.S. government cover-ups work. And it's very simple. If you're new to the show, I'll explain to you how you can detect any cover-up as it's happening right now. What happens is this. The FBI comes out and says, we're going to get them. That thing you want us to get after, we're going to do it. And we'll update you as soon as we have something. Then they wait as long as they possibly can. And they give you a minor update. They say, big news conference coming up, minor update. Then they wait as long as they possibly can, and they do it again. and they never quite reach the conclusion of the investigation. And when you question them about it, when a newsman questions them and says, "Why is this taking so long?" they belittle you, they insult you, they try to make you feel dumb, like you don't know something, like you're just an uneducated bumpkin. They say, "These are very, do you realize that if we rush this investigation, that we could screw the whole thing up? If we fail to get a prosecution, then then they just get to go free. They get to face no punishment whatsoever." And they do that, ironically, because they're trying to let them go free. They're trying to let somebody face no punishment whatsoever because it's politically inconvenient. It's inconvenient to their pursuit of power. And that's what's going to happen here. When we notice the inevitable conspicuous absence in these files, when we say, hey, there's references to an event that the DOJ definitely has documented, such as the arrest of Epstein and several clients, but we don't see any documents for the arrest of these clients. What happened? They will say to you, well, we're releasing these Epstein files in waves, you see. That'll probably be in the next batch. And when you don't see that in the next batch, they'll say, well, we have to be very careful, you understand. These are ongoing prosecutions. If we don't get it perfect this one time, these people will never face justice. Maybe it'll be in the next batch. And the next one, and the next one, and the next one will come out, and they will hope that you just forget. They will hope that you care about other things, that you get cancer and die, that you don't keep asking the uncomfortable question, the one they're not willing to say no about. Just ask me later. Later will never arrive because this is a United States government cover-up. Look for the shadows. Look for the absences. Yeah, Groove Dragon. After the Watergate break-in, it was the cover-up that got Nixon. That's actually where we perfected the cover-up. The scum of the earth that live in America learned how to cover up because of this failure of Nixon. They learned that you can't just dodge the bullet all at once. They learned that you have to pretend like justice is being sought. And they're also confident that you, the American people, I don't think this is true anymore. It used to be true, but they're confident that you, the American people, are gullible enough, are trusting enough of people you ought not to trust, that you will just get frustrated and stop asking questions, that you'll assume that any amount of delay they are doing is right, is appropriate, is normal. Normal being the key. That you'll assume that and just assume, well, I'm not a lawyer. I could never be a lawyer. You know, not me, not little old me. Think of how badly people make me feel on the in the media when they use technical jargon as though I'm supposed to understand it. And then people nod and say, "Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense." And I never understand it. See, I'm not smart enough to question these folks. They're doing that intentionally. It's their job to communicate to regular folks. And if they're trying to communicate to you and failing, they're either bad at their job, even though they're on the national stage, or they're good at a different job, or they're good at just undermining you, gaslighting you, trying to make you feel bad for not knowing the details of a thing that it's their job to inform you about. The media, the Department of Justice, they are in cahoots. They are working together to lie to you. Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, David Copperfield, those were three of the biggest names of famous people from my youth. They were all child rapists. David Copperfield, child rapist, come sue me. Diana Ross, think you're dead. Try suing me anyway. I'd be amazed. Michael Jackson, definitely dead. Please sue me. I would be fascinated by the proof of the afterlife. But nonetheless, that's enough for me. It's enough for me to see them, Diana Ross hanging around in a see-through shirt next to what appears to be a child, what is implied to be the victim of child sex trafficking. I don't need more information than that. And if you're worried about justice for the accused, which is normally something you should be worried about, then you should know that the injustice was the fact that they didn't have a court date. The injustice was the fact that they were not allowed to clear their names in court. Because a reasonable person looking at the evidence that exists would come to the conclusion that they are all rapists. I'm going to go over the rest of these files over the course of the weekend. I encourage you, if you have the stomach for it, have a gander yourself. But there's one more thing that I want to talk about, just about the files broadly, that I think you should consider. And that is, what is Donald Trump's strategy for this? I'm going to be blunt. This is a conspiracy stream. You see the spooky smoke? That means I don't have proof. I can only make an educated guess. But goddamn, is it educated. Here's the deal. I'm confident Trump is dying. Donald Trump has talked about death a lot recently. As we've seen with the way he behaves, he rarely has the ability to keep any sort of a secret, to not just talk about what is on his mind. He has fallen asleep at multiple public events. I don't know why they keep doing public events, because it has got to be more embarrassing that he fell asleep, 6 times on camera over the course of 2 weeks? Well, guess what else is happening? Once a month, he gets a big old bruise on his hand at what we assume is an injection site. He is unable to carry a cohesive thought for any length of time. He ended up having to call it the weave. It's just his inability to stay on target. He's dying. Also worth noting, delay is the only tactic he's ever used that has any sort of success. Only tactic he's ever used intentionally that has any sort of success in terms of sparing him punishment. And he has a new goal to delay for. He doesn't have to delay long. He doesn't even need to successfully extricate himself from the files. He can do that tactic of saying, oh, this mysterious guy that keeps showing up as being referenced in the files, but their name is always blacked out. This mysterious guy who Jeffrey Epstein associates say ran a teen beauty contest right where Epstein was recruiting child sex slaves from. That guy never gets mentioned. He can keep delaying the release of who that guy is until he's dead. I think that's his strategy for this. They're going to bury us with files that are about everything except the main thing. That the president, number one, was a client of Jeffrey Epstein's. Number two, I believe, was a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein's. I believe that he was one of the people who provided Jeffrey Epstein with child sex slaves. And number three, killed his former criminal accomplice. I believe Donald Trump had Jeffrey Epstein killed in prison. So to recap, I believe Trump is, well, we know Trump is in the files. We've already seen him in the files, but I believe Trump is explicitly mentioned in the files. After the recap, I will explain how explicitly. We know that Trump hired the person who gave Jeffrey Epstein a sweetheart deal. We know that I suspect that Trump was a accomplice. Oh my God, let's try this again. Trump is in the files. I suspect we will see him more. I know that Trump, or I suspect that Trump was an accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein's. And finally, I suspect that Trump killed Epstein. So client, accomplice, and killer of Jeffrey Epstein. Hey, why do I think he was an accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein? Well, gosh, there was a gentleman named Alex Acosta, and he was a U.S. attorney, and he negotiated a non-prosecution agreement with Jeffrey Epstein in 2008. And that deal allowed Epstein to avoid federal sex trafficking charges and receive a very light 13-month sentence in a county jail. Hey, real question. Why would you go to a jail if it's a 13-month sentence? I know it seems kind of random, right? Why? What are you talking about, Jake? Well, jail is for folks that are serving a year or less, generally. That's the difference between jail and prison, mainly is the time that you're supposed to be there. A year or less, that's jail. A year or more, prison. More hardened people go to prison, obviously. It's a tough crowd. But 13 months in a jail, not unusual, actually. See, there's a thing called a year and a day. If you get 12 months and 1 day, you are actually eligible for parole earlier than you would be if you just got 12 months. Isn't that funny? In other words, parole in America is tiered, and people serving a sentence greater than 1 year are eligible for parole slightly earlier. It's just how it works. In other words, that 13-month sentence in a jail for Epstein was an even bigger gift than it initially seems like. In other words, instead of giving 12 months, of which he would have definitely had to serve 10, he got 13 months and is only required to serve like 6. That is the size of deal Epstein got. And he totally avoided sex trafficking charges, the main thing he appeared to be doing. But why would Acosta later get hired by Trump to be the U.S. Labor Secretary? This is Robert Reich was the Secretary of Labor. This is a job for an economist. This is a job for Robert Bork. This is not a job for a U.S. attorney generally. Unless you're Donald Trump and you think two things. Number one, I was let go by Alex Acosta, so I owe him, and I need him close so I know he's not going to talk. Number two, just like when Trump sees Ben Carson and doesn't see a doctor, but merely sees a black guy, so he puts him in charge of HUD. Or he sees Robert Kennedy Jr., and he doesn't see an environmental activist, which he was for many years, but he sees a muscly guy because of the steroids. And he puts him in charge of health, despite the fact that he famously got a bunch of kids killed with his nonsense about vaccinations. Point is, Trump associates people to jobs based on very shallow things. And Acosta made him the labor secretary. after he let Epstein go for child sex slavery. Don't forget about the Gatsby party. Don't forget that he takes every opportunity he can to mock you, America. He could not have less respect for you. So what do I think happened? I think Donald Trump gave information to the authorities in exchange for not being prosecuted himself. Not just as a client, but as a co-conspirator. Donald Trump had child beauty pageants that he put on. Does he seem like the sort of person that's interested in the betterment of children? Did he do anything else for children? Did he have like a scout camp? Did he have a crafting seminar series that he put on? Did he fund art classes? Nope, just a child beauty pageant. The sort of people who would allow their children to be ogled on a stage, to wear skimpy clothes in front of a crowd of strangers who are adults. Those sort of people are also the sort of people that might let their kid go on a vacation unsupervised with adult men. I think we're going to find the parents are culpable. I think we're going to find that these victims came from poor backgrounds, that the awful, ugly truth is that these parents weren't just let down, or these children weren't just let down by you and me and our indifference. They weren't just let down by the Department of Justice and its corruption, but they were let down by their parents. Their parents and their parents' greed and desperation to escape life in a purely capitalist system, to escape life in a system which is as bad in terms of capitalism as Soviet Russia was in terms of communism, which uses a pretend understanding of these ideas to justify cruelty. I suspect Virginia Giuffre didn't kill herself. I suspect Donald Trump killed her. But it could have also been Prince Andrew. Or she might have killed herself because she saw what a world we allowed to fester. Thank you, Groove Dragon. The official autopsy said homicide could not be ruled out. Yeah, I think he killed her. I think he killed her. I think he killed Epstein. And I think he used his pageants to snatch up vulnerable girls, turn them over to Epstein. And I think he preyed upon those girls. I think when he said that Virginia Giuffre was one of his, that he stole her from me, I think he was being a lot more honest than we realized. As dementia rots his evil brain, as he dies slowly in front of our eyes, we might hear him make some mistakes. I would encourage people in the news to lie to him. I would encourage people in the news to ask him questions as though his involvement in these matters was already known. Ask him to justify it. It's said that you, in the recent files, it was discovered that you actually seemed to be working with Epstein to recruit girls. Why did you allow him to take girls from your beauty pageants? If he didn't do anything, the correct response would be, I never did. That never happened. What are you talking about? Well, that can't possibly be in anything because that never happened. But what you'll hear from Trump is he's lying about it. I didn't know that those girls were going directly onto his plane. And when I saw them on the island, I didn't even recognize them. I had somebody later told me that that girl that you were banging was one of your teenage beauty contestants. As this era ends, as a society, we have to wash ourselves clean. And includes washing our hands of these people. Clinton should be prosecuted. Don't let my talking about Trump make you think for a moment that I forgot that I know they're using Clinton as a distraction, but the fact that he was there to distract us with is a problem for that motherfucker. He's got to go to prison. At the very least, he's just got to go to prison. That's it. He probably has to spend the rest of his days in prison. Even if he somehow, some crazy how, didn't participate, he knew, he saw, and he knew, and he said nothing, and that's enough for the rest of his life to be spent behind bars. Fuck him. And same with the rest of them. Copperfield, bye. Dershowitz, get the fuck out. You lived most of your life bossing other people around, taking more than your fair share of the money that America has to work with, living in mansions, pissing on us. You get to spend the rest of your days. You know what? If you would have just done that, if you would have just taken more than your fair share of the money and just been belittling to us regular folks, just been rude to waiters, just cut us off in traffic with your fancy cars, just polluted the environment, flying all the hell over the place when you could have flown with the rest of us, but you needed to fly private because you don't want to be around our stink. If you would have just lived that way, killing the earth and destroying everybody who you came across, if that would have been all you did, it would have been fine because we liked your magic act, Copperfield. It would have been fine, but you're a child rapist. Clinton, you're a child rapist. Hillary Clinton, you are a child rapist defender. Every last one of the motherfuckers in here should be prosecuted. If they try to tell us that they can't, then we are going to write new laws and we are going to put people in positions of power who will enforce those laws. I don't care if the law is simply the following people, list of everybody in those files, goes to prison for the rest of eternity. Fine. Let us dishonor ourselves one last time by writing an unjust law that takes care of all the injustice we allowed to occur while we were pretending like we lived in a decent society. We don't let this go. And we also don't fool ourselves into thinking that Trump is not the number one guy on this thing. He is all over the flight logs. There are pictures of him hanging out with Epstein constantly. He gave a quote where he said, Jeffrey likes women almost as much as me, and some of them are even on the young side. He knew. He knew and he did nothing. Acosta was hired by Trump to have a job that he was way underqualified for because Acosta let Trump go. Trump gave evidence of his conspiracy to traffic children with Jeffrey Epstein, just like Matt Gaetz and Joel Greenberg. In exchange for that, because Acosta was being extraordinarily generous with these people, he just let him go. Also, Epstein working for Mossad, as he is suspected to, as there is more evidence of that than there is evidence that he didn't work for Mossad. Jeffrey got a tiny little sentence. And then later, when there was outrage, when it was embarrassing, Trump killed Epstein. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for what you can do. And what you can do this time is talk about this. It's Trump's worst nightmare. I'll see you on the next one. Coming up, Riverboat Jack.